back, listeners, to another beautiful episode on the Mindful Journey podcast. I'm your host, Sana, as always, and this is the space where we discuss, where we connect, or go beneath the surface of wellness trends and explore what it really means to live awake, alive, and aligned with mindfulness, of course. Now, imagine, listeners, if your emotional toolkit came in every color of the rainbow. What if red wasn't just red, but a call to passion or grounding? What if blue wasn't sadness, but a portal to calm clarity? Well, listeners, today's conversation is a vibrant one. We are diving into enhancing mindfulness and bliss through the colors of rainbow and other fun favorites with someone who brings clinical depth and spiritual wisdom. My guest is a holistic dentist with decades of experience, but what makes her unique is how she bridges Western medicine with Eastern practices like yoga, Ayurveda, and she's here to help us think beyond brushing and into embodiment, from the mouth to mind, from color to consciousness. So grab your sweet cup of tea, your curiosity, and maybe a crayon, because today we are coloring outside the lines of typical wellness talk. So, Dr. Roberta Garceau, welcome to the show, and I'm really honored to have you here with us.
Thank you, Sana. It's a pleasure to be here and talk about this fun and colorful topic.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Dr. Robert, I think all of our listeners will have this question. How exactly are we connecting wellness or mindfulness with colors? I mean, I have had conversations where, our surroundings, our environment, our interiors, the room or the home we live in, they do influence our emotional wellness. But how exactly colors they are connected with this?
So, one of the simple ways that I like to practice a little game that I made up is practicing the colors of the rainbow to enhance mindfulness and
Mhm.
awareness. So, for instance, when I walked my dogs earlier today, when I'm out in nature, I look for the colors of the rainbow. And so, I may have noticed a red berry and then orange in a bird's beak or belly, or perhaps a leaf that's gone a little dry and looks a little orangey, or if you see a turtle that has some orange in the shell. Yellow with some flowers today. Green could be anything that's green and growing and vibrant outside. Those are usually pretty accessible where I live. And then blue can be the sky. It can be something else. It could be maybe a blue streak or a tinge or a hue in a rock, like a grayish blue, maybe something you hadn't noticed before. Purple could be a flower. It could be a dark leaf or the veins in a stem, or it could even be a bruise that you see,
Mm.
right? Or something like that. And what I find is when I practice that, when I look for the different colors of the rainbow, I see things that I wouldn't have seen before. Absolutely every single time. And it helps me to connect with my surroundings and to ground into nature. So seeing a red sign doesn't count necessarily. That's cheating. We look for organic things, real things. And you can do that inside your home, right? The colors, as you were mentioning, the interior walls, the inside of your home, just how much color do you have there? Is there a fish or a pet um,
Uh-huh.
that has colors? Some plants, even noticing things like the blood vessels in your eyes counts as red. Hmm. Maybe a freckles kind of orangey. So
Mhm.
just having more mindfulness and more awareness that way.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And then I think sometimes, especially as you connected with body, it can really give out some signals or indications of our physical health as well through color. I mean, we often see in medical conversations talking about color of the pee or color of your eyes,
Hmm.
like oh, and sometimes color of your nails, whether it's pale or it's more reddish or whitish.
Hmm.
uh, Colors have a lot of emotions or a lot of stories to tell, whether it's in nature or in our rooms or within our bodies.
Definitely. There's a lot of information through the colors. Another way that we can use the colors is noticing how colors and elements and senses and chakras can kind of all interrelate. And that's a fascinating, huge topic that we don't have time to go into, in great depth. But basically, if we think of red as corresponding to the element of earth and
Mhm,
more of that grounding chakra, that grounding sensation,
mhm,
then red doesn't always need to mean inflammation or fire or heat, right? Red can actually correspond more to grounding and stability, strength, calm, ease. Um, and so there's really the opportunity to become more self aware through the senses and the colors. Um, I don't know if how much your listeners have heard about like the five great elements of Ayurveda and
mhm.
how those correspond to the senses. So, again, that earth element corresponding more to the sense of smell, right? So, that's another practice that we can use to become more mindful and more self aware. So, I'll practice that out in nature too. That's another one of my fun favorites is to just as you're walking or going about your day, you don't have to be taking exercise. Maybe you're walking from one place to another. It's just an
Mhm,
opportunity to check in with your senses. So from the most grounding, the sense of smell, noticing what you smell in your environment. Are there smells of foods? Um, if you're out in nature, you might smell some other pungent aromas. Can you
yeah.
smell your own skin? Right? That's
Ah,
a great way to bring more awareness. And then as you come up a little bit more, you come to the element of water and noticing any water in your environment, right? So you can notice the body of water, you can notice um, rain or moisture in the air that you can't see, but you can feel it if it's a humid day. You can
mhm,
notice water in yourself as far
mhm.
as tears or mucus or saliva or, as you mentioned earlier, urine, right? Sweat.
Yeah.
All of these things are the water element. And then we go to fire, which is more in the middle. Fire becomes a little bit more subtle. Obviously, fire is hot, it's radiant, it's piercing and penetrating and spreading and sharp. And so, noticing those things in your environment, maybe you see the sun that's radiant and hot and spreading. Maybe you're noticing about your own body some heat in your armpits or your groin, or maybe getting a little. It's a warm time of year for me. I don't know. I think it's warm a lot where you are, Sana.
Yes,
Um,
that's it.
and maybe even noticing what's sharp. That could be noticing a twig or a stick or a thorn that's piercing,
Mhm.
or a sharp sensation within your own body like a pang or a twinge or a throbbing of inflammation. And then going even more subtle, you can go to the element of air and wind. Um, and that's all light and subtle and mobile. So noticing sometimes we can't see the wind, right? But we can
Yeah.
see the effects of the wind. So noticing branches moving, noticing clouds moving across the sky. You can certainly feel it, right? So air and wind correspond to the sense of feel of touch or feeling. And so feeling wind passing over our skin, noticing temperature, noticing movement of any
Yeah.
sort is attributed to wind and air. So even if it's your thoughts, your mind body, realizing that thoughts and nerve impulses are all movement. It's all electrical energy within yourself. And then finally, the element of space, which is just
Mm.
physical space, that our physical bodies occupy space. And when we move from one place to another, we're moving into a new space and we're leaving behind potential space where we just were.
Mm.
So that's really kind of a cool way to have self awareness and notice your physical body in the world, notice your mental body, notice yourself in the world, notice your surroundings. It's just a really fascinating, beautiful, colorful way to really combine all of these concepts and distill it down to a simple practice of noticing. And that is really what is mindfulness and awareness, right? It's noticing and being aware in the present moment is the definition of mindfulness. So when we practice these fun favorites of mine that I share in my book Bliss Not Burnout, they really bring us so much more present in ourselves and in our lives.
Wow. Until now, we have spoken around mindfulness as, um, going through your own thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, surroundings, uh, sounds, or just being aware. But uh, you beautifully blend it with color, smell, space. There's so many other elements playing here a role, you know, and it's like a beautiful um, dance of all these elements, and we have to be just, you know, it's kind of activating all of our senses. Um, uh, and yeah, it kind of gives a spiritual touch here, and that's what I would like to, I'm really curious to know, Dr. Roberta, that um do you find any skepticism, especially coming from the healthcare circles around color therapy or chakra balancing or mindfulness?
Ah, sometimes I think of this as sneaking vegetables into the meatloaf. It's maybe more American thing, but I don't necessarily call it those things. I don't necessarily talk about chakras in medicine.
Mm-hmm.
I might talk about them more in a retreat or in a yoga class or something like that. However, these energy centers are real and true. And one of the amazing things to me is how the ancient wisdoms that we're talking about through Ayurveda and these old traditional practices that are thousands of years old, how we're finding more and more scientific evidence or support for what they knew intuitively thousands of years ago. And so I think that people in general are a little more open to the idea of alternative medicines or more integrative medicines. So it's a beautiful time that we're in right now where people will even consider it. I think, you know, 20, 30, 40 years ago, not so much. There was a little more
Yeah.
resistance to that. Spirituality is an interesting concept, right? It doesn't equal religiosity. So
Mm-hmm.
even if someone is agnostic or atheistic, there's still space for spirit, right? Because we're undeniably energy. We're all energetic bodies. And whether we look at that through the traditional lens or we look at it through science, And there's a whole, like Deepak Chopra talks a
Mm,
lot about
mm,
how we are electrons and protons and we're really more energy. Things are,
mm,
and so things are less linear and more non-linear. I don't even know what the word to use for that. So
mm,
I think as long personally, I haven't found a lot of pushback or resistance to the idea of including spirituality. To the opposite, I find that people really appreciate it. So maybe it's been the elephant in the room, like the thing we couldn't talk about. I'll have patients, my dental patients will come,
yeah,
and there's a gentleman that I can think of who had previously been very, very nervous in the dental chair to the point where even to have a cleaning or some just for me to look in his mouth, he would visibly sweat. His whole face would be sweating, and I could see that it was really uncomfortable.
mm,
And I do many, many different things, including breathing with patients and monitoring my own energy to help patients reflect that, keeping myself grounded and stable so that they have an anchor in me. And
mhm.
one day he came in for a more lengthy procedure and I was prepared. I said, "Oh gosh, this could be a challenge for all of us." He came in and he did really well. And at the end I said, "This is your best visit ever. Like you really I don't know what you were doing for yourself, but it's really helped you. Could you share with me?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm visualizing being." I don't recall where he was being at the moment. Maybe he was on a beach, maybe he was someplace else, but I'm finding more and more, and even, sometimes we think that maybe women are more likely to admit these things, but I'm finding many men are also using these practices of visualization. Maybe it's a little more acceptable because you have sports like psychology, right? And things like that where we're
Yeah.
encouraged, men and women are encouraged to visualize themselves performing at a certain level or doing a certain thing. And so it's pretty cool to me. That falls right into the category of spirituality. And so if someone can use mindfulness and visualization to help themselves emotionally and psychologically, that is a beautiful thing. They're so much healthier and how empowering, right? He didn't have to take a drug to relax himself. And you know what? If he did need a drug to relax himself, there's not a judgment on that. My point being is when we can use these practices of self awareness, of mindfulness, of these pieces of spirituality, allow them to trickle in, they can be super empowering and impactful.
True, true. And I think, uh, many of our listeners or people would say that no, I mean, I do not believe because it's more of a distraction or like a, it's just giving you a shell to avoid the difficult questions or the situations. But uh, there is a scientific and a spiritual connection here, whether it's our senses or the color or whatever we visualize, and they are helping us in embracing it uh, in a better way. So I think that's what I just thought of it, because many of our listeners will feel like it's kind of more of a distraction or more of I let me just avoid the problems until they solve on their own. But I mean, what's your opinion on this, Dr. Roberta?
I would argue the complete opposite.
Mhm.
I don't
Oh,
think it's a distraction at all. I think it's a coming back to your true self. When we
mm,
practice mindfulness and awareness, we become more embodied. And that is absolutely in the presence. That's not a distraction. Distraction is running around doing all day. Distraction is all of the constant advertisements and marketing and messages that come at us through billboards and television and media and social media and internet. Distraction is running from home to work to through traffic, through this and that, and never taking time to slow down and be present in your own body, right?
Yep.
So the practices that we've been talking about are more embodying and can help you to actually deal with things. When you're distracted, you're not allowing yourself to feel. When you use these exercises and these practices to become more embodied and more in tune with how you're feeling, it helps you to deal with issues. Like, for instance, my husband had, he was worried about our dog the other day. She was having some medical issues and got quite worried and spent the whole day at the veterinarian emergency hospital. And thankfully, she's fine. She ended up being fine. But the next day, he woke up and he said, "Oh my gosh, my hips are really sore." Maybe it was from sitting in the car to drive her to the emergency vet.
Mhm.
And then he's like, "Maybe it's because I was so stressed out." And I said,
Mm.
"Oh my gosh, you hit that nail right on the head." It was both of those things. Sitting in the car for an extended period of time could make your hips sore. But certainly
Mm.
holding stress, it's well known that we hold stress in certain body areas, whether it's our neck, our back, our belly, our hips. Hips are a really big one. And
Yes.
so by being aware of that, he didn't just take some medicine to make the stiffness go away. He was able to acknowledge, oh, this is what I'm feeling.
Mm.
Once we acknowledge a feeling, that helps us to deal with it, right?
Ex-
We need to feel in order to deal, in order to heal. So the recipe for being sick is to just never ever
Feel.
practice mindfulness and awareness, right? The recipe for being more healthy is to check in regularly with yourself. It's like anything else that you practice. The more that you do it, the better you become and the more you want to do it and the healthier you are. It's a beautiful, beautiful spiraling up.
Yeah. Feel, deal, and heal.
Mhm.
Oh, oh, wonderful, wonderful. So, Roberta, before we wrap up, if our listeners they would like to connect with you and would like to embark upon this journey of embracing the color therapy and how scientifically, spiritually, it is all connected with our chakra balancing, and then it helps in mindfulness. What would be the best way?
So you can reach me at blissnotburnout.com. It'll scoot you right over to my author page, which is Dr. Roberta Garceau. So my name without any punctuation.com. You can sign up for my twice monthly newsletters and blogs, which are all about wellness and mindfulness and have little exercises in there and reminders. It also lets you know where I might be speaking, teaching, presenting, and any other events that are going on, workshops. My book, Bliss, Not Burnout, you can find that on my website or on Amazon, and it has all my connections. So I'd love for your listeners to grab a copy of the book, Bliss, Not Burnout, and also to sign up for the newsletters because it's a wonderful free way to have more positive wellness in your mailbox and less junk.
Of course, of course. I'll make sure to have all the details mentioned in the show notes. And Dr. Robara, thank you so much for reminding us that wellness, it isn't just in what we do, but it's more in what we feel, notice, and then choose each and every day. So thank you so much. This was such a beautiful, simple yet so connected, profound conversation.
Thank you, Sana. Have a beautiful rest of the day. I'm wishing you more bliss.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Roberta. And to all the listeners, we just not today explored more than colors, but we also explored how self-awareness can be playful, how science can hold hands with spirit, and how even your dental visit could be a gateway to a deeper joy. So just refer to the show notes to connect with Dr. Roberta. Make sure to check out her book. And also, until next time, this is your host, Sana, and this has been the Mindful Journey. Thank you.